Alright, we're going live shortly. We're live, baby. Done. Alright, so what are we looking at right now? We are live right now. Alright, so we got latest news last 16 minutes. Mossad launches a Telegram channel urging Iranians to resist the regime and start strikes. 35 minutes ago, US Embassy in UAE orders staff to shelter in place. All right. Did you want me to put up the story? Okay, yeah, I know, yeah. All right. Hasn't been much. Iranian impacts in Galilee, so we have that as well. That's new. Several impacts reported in Bahrain. The videos are out. Right now. It looks to be near the coast, right on the port, to be honest. If I open up that video, how does that look for us? There we go. Oh, so the screen's in the way. Damn, that's huge. That's huge. Mensch on it, Osint, open source just posted this one 12 minutes ago. US Navy 5th Fleet, that's where it's stationed right now. It's been hit by a missile, as we can see. Iran just attacked US Navy's naval support activity in Bahrain. Large smoke plume reported within the Mina Salman port. Yep. Pretty big stuff. Big early hits early on going on. And we have had footage again, this come out of Bahrain again. So we know so far that Israel's been hit. There's smoke in Galilee. There's smoke in, I believe, where was it, Haifa as well? Or Tel Aviv? That is interesting. So Tehran got hit pretty early on. That was the first strike. There was this video launched as well today, but I don't know how real this one is. Iranian MiG-29 flying over Tehran today. Alrighty. So we get any updates on that. The internet has been, we posted about this a little bit earlier, the internet has been cut down in Iran, I believe operating at 4% so far. I mean, could be due to several reasons. Could be just everyone trying to post as many videos as possible, just crashing the internet. Or we could be seeing some electronic warfare things going on as well. Quite a quick response early on from Iran. AMK mapping was saying 30 to 70 ballistic missiles. 30 to 70. Let me just confirm that. Let's see how we're going. All right. Here we go. Yes, AMK originally said that we had 30 to 70 missiles shot from Iran in the first attack, in the first retaliation strike. Since then, I believe there has been a second retaliation strike as well. All right, let's carry on. So how are we looking? All right. This is something I do want to talk about a bit later. These cruise missiles flying over Iraq and Syria as well. The Syria thing I have spoken about before, very significant that the Assad regime is no longer operating in Syria. But we will go into that a bit later. But for now, let's see what we're looking at. Again, so the US support Navy activity base has been hit. This is where the 5th Fleet is headquartered in Bahrain. At least one impact so far. So we're seeing a spread out attack. It seems to not just be Israel, it seems to be US bases in Bahrain as well. There we go, that's it. We got more sirens coming in from Israel again. All right, here we go. Some of the first things I really noticed was, I mean, lack of Iranian air defense. That was something we spoke about on the podcast just recently. Yes, that was something we just spoke about just recently in the last podcast. How strong are the Iranian air defense systems? We don't know yet. We don't know yet. We do know clearly that a few cruise missiles got past. How many got intercepted? If any got intercepted, we don't know. The biggest question is, has Iran recovered? Has Iran recovered from the 12-day war? Right. We do know that they have been prioritizing their missile facilities in terms of repairing them over the nuclear facilities. But again, it's a short time frame. It's a short time frame. Early morning hit as well that, according to Iranian sources, did catch the Iranians off guard. They weren't expecting an attack at this time. Let's see if we have anything else at the moment. Again, everyone just keeps posting about the Bahrain one. How much damage are we really looking at? I'm not too sure here. I'm not too sure. In the last few days, the US Air Force has been sending out most of its fleet out of the bases closest to Iran for obvious reasons, for attacks like this. Most of the planes have been stationed in Jordan, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, so a bit deeper. It gives the US air defense just a bit more time to react, right? Because missiles like this will get through. Ballistic missiles travel at a crazy fast rate. Again, we're seeing, this is a great source, Ragib, I'm probably butchering his name. Several US and Israeli fighter jets are reportedly visible in Syrian airspace. Again, this is a major one. Since the Assad regime is gone, what this means is that Syria is basically an open window into Iran. And we saw that from the videos earlier with the cruise missiles flying in. This would not have happened if the Assad government was still around, at least to a lesser extent. The Israelis were targeting the radar stations of the Iranians in Syria for quite a while. But now that Assad's not there, it's just open doors, straight through. Tomahawks over Tehran. New video here. See if I can play this. It's probably going to go fast as. Again, question. How strong are Iranian defenses? To be seen. The response was quite fast. I was surprised by that as well. When Iran and Israel had their first sort of missile skirmish and drone skirmish a year or two ago, we didn't really see a response for a while, right? Then the second time it happened, we saw a response a lot sooner. And during the 12-day war, again, I believe similar to this, the response was quite instant. All right. Cool. What are we seeing here? Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yes, the US base has been hit in Bahrain. Yes, we just covered that at the moment. Here's a new video. I don't know how, again, you have to be careful with these videos that are coming out at the moment. It's hard to sort of tell what's true, what's not, especially early on. Spoke about this ad nauseum already, but when it comes to Iran, you have to be careful. There's so many players involved here that are trying to spread misinformation and whatnot. Okay, I'm just trying to verify this video. Impact in Holon, Iranian missile impact in Holon, Israel. Now let's look at this bad boy over here. How does this look? All right, so if we open up this map over here, all right, it's probably lagging crazy because everyone's probably on it. This, if anyone wants to use it, it's worldmonitor.app. All right, boom. There we go. Okay, so most of the US air assets in Qatar, Kuwait, the UAE, and elsewhere on the Strait of Hormuz has been moved to places like Saudi Arabia, a bit deeper. And if we go up a little bit, again, this map is lagging like crazy, to Jordan and Israel. Why? It just gives more time for air defense systems to actually respond to these missiles coming in. All right, what are we looking at here? Let's look at Telegram quickly, see how we're going on there. All right. Beautiful. For everyone that's just joined, we're just sort of covering the latest in what has happened. Just mostly going through the threads, looking at all the videos and just assessing. So far, what we do know, the Iranian response is quite quick. Several impacts in Israel and Bahrain as well. At the moment, that's all I know at the moment. I'm just going to quickly check Telegram, see how we're going there. Who struck first? Classic Star Wars Episode 4 question. So who struck first? It was the the Israelis. At first, what came out was that the Israelis launched a preemptive strike that was on Israel. That was per Israeli media, right? But Channel 12 has said that it was Channel 12 said it was a joint US and Iranian strike. And shortly after, we got that 8-minute clip of Trump with his hat speaking, saying that they have launched an attack with Israel. So yes, the Israelis struck first. According to Iranian media, they were caught off guard by it. The strike. The timing was a bit unusual. Yep, the beers are flowing here at Basement HQ. Ongoing. Look, I think to answer your question, Terry, there, I think a big thing we have to consider is where is the Iranian air defense systems, right? I don't think if you can shoot cruise missiles during the day and you can have Israeli fighter jets, probably not in Iran itself, but in Syria and Iraq, we seriously have to question how strong the Iranian air defense systems are. The Israelis had claimed to have destroyed all the massive ones, but according to recent satellite images, that proved out to be false. So we'll see. Let's see how we're looking here. Anything new besides ads? All right. Let's have a quick. I was meant to have a quick browse on. Gonna have a quick check at Telegram how we're going. That's usually one of the faster places to get intel. All right. So what we're looking at the moment. In the last 2 minutes, there have been new missile launches again from Iran. So this could be the second or third salvo that we're seeing already. In Kuwait, we're seeing audible explosions in Kuwait. Hopefully that goes live soon. We can chuck that on the screen here. Again, like the footage is a bit shoddy at the moment, but yeah. So we're seeing at least 3 salvo launches so far. The first one was launched within about 10 minutes of the Israeli strike. And then we saw another one shortly afterwards. Now we seem to be seeing a third one targeting Bahrain again, and this time Kuwait. The Kuwait missiles have already landed. We might be in for a big night here. It just really depends. It really depends how long the Iranian strikes are going to last. All right. If we're to believe AMK mapping, who's a great source, I do recommend everyone follow him on X, right? If we do believe him, he said 30 to 70 in the first salvo. That's pretty interesting. It's not, it wasn't as large as the first salvo during the 12-day war, but still pretty considerable. Is that the max capacity that Iran can fire? Who knows? Or are they just sort of testing the waters at the moment? All right, so we're seeing first release footage of impacts in Haifa, Israel. Let's go here. Again, seems to be, I'm not too sure. All right, here we go. Knife for Iraq, there we go. That's a great source as well to follow. I believe they were the first ones to call the strikes, to be honest. The Israeli strikes. So it looks to be like a residential area that was struck, possibly. Still too much to know. That's what I'm thinking about also, Jason. Good comment. We're not seeing a retaliatory strike yet on Iran. We saw the first strikes, and since then we haven't really seen much. It will, again, we also have to ask why did the Israelis choose to strike the command centers straight away, right, rather than possibly attacking the air defense systems, whatnot, and the command centers? It seemed what we saw at first was almost like a decapitation style attack, trying to take out the officials. And why would the Israelis be doing that if you're thinking that? Mainly because in Israel's eyes, if they can take down the Iranian high command, that's going to paralyze the response system of the rest of the Iranian military and whatnot. Okay. But how effective that would be, I'm not too sure. Like if we go back to the 12-day war, the Iranians managed to recuperate themselves pretty fast. They took a bit of a beating, massive beating, and then that's where they had the air superiority over Western Iran. They took a big beating. A lot of command centers hit. It didn't seem to affect them that much. I do believe that this is something that Iran definitely has planned for. Let's read the chat quickly. Definitely. We did have news coming that the Houthis had launched an attack on the sea, I believe, if we can confirm that. In the Red Sea, they were targeting ships. I believe those were early reports. I don't know how true that is. Let's see if we go back here. Let's see if we've got any updates, news updates. All right. Nothing here. A lot of the sites, I wonder why, a lot of the sites seem to be lagging at the moment. Nothing on. All right, here we go. Open source intel. So this is open source intel. He's a biased source, but good source when it comes to Middle East. I believe it is an Israeli source. He's quoting the IDF here. It seems the Israeli Air Force is currently conducting a broad strike on a number of military targets that are belonging to the Iranian regime in Western Iran. That was quoted by the IDF here. And yeah, everyone seems to be quoting that. So it seems that Israel has begun second level of strikes with the Air Force. Most likely F-16s and whatnot. So the first strike were primarily, from what we know of the clips that were released, was primarily Tomahawk missiles, right? Now we're seeing the Israeli Air Force. Again, there's a lot that we don't know. There's definitely heaps that's going on at the moment. There could be an active sabotage campaign, which again we saw last year with Mossad agents and whatnot, and intelligence agents on the ground in Iran, sabotaging things. Electronic warfare. Again, if we start seeing more videos of Iran being hit by the IDF Air Force, that's going to really give some insight into how strong the air defense systems are, because that is the biggest question. The Iranian air defense had failed last year for the most part, especially in Western Iran, to stop the air superiority of the Israelis. Now, again, it's not looking positive. It's not looking positive. I wish I could pull up some of the clips. All right, so let's see if this might be, my big ass screen might be in the way here.
Big shit.
But we can see interceptors being launched. This is in Bahrain. Interceptors are being launched at the moment. This was released only 9 minutes ago. All right. Oh, here's disclose.tv. They've just uploaded some really good footage of the Iranian strike on the naval headquarters in Bahrain. Let's take a look at that. This is probably some of the best footage that we've received so far. There we go. Oh, I'm probably blocking it, Dead set M. The best part of the video is being blocked. Let's see if that loads. I don't think so. Let me update this up. Hold on. Let me play around with this. Can you see that video better from there? Okay, there we go. That's a bit better. Alright, so what we're looking at the moment, I'm going to replay that now. Boom. Clear missile impact. Seems to be directly on the naval headquarters. You guys probably can't see it, but it seems to be deep. It seems to be a good strike. Interesting. How important this strike is, though, again, I don't know. Most air assets have been moved out of here like a few days ago. So these could be symbolic strikes more than anything, right? But again, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Is any indication of American jets flying over Iran? At the moment, no. The US, while saying that they are involved, the US has been quite quiet about everything so far. I haven't seen massive US involvement yet, besides them just saying that they are involved with the initial strike. So far, it seems to just be the IDF at the moment. Seems to be the IDF at the moment. Let's give a quick browse. Let's go on Twitter, shall we? Alright. Sorry, Telegram, should I say? One minute ago, repeated sirens in northern Israel, so we could be ready to expect more hits. Explosions have already been reported in Haifa already. Alright, so we're just looking at let's see how we're going over here. I'm going to send this to the basement team. Just quickly, then we can pop this up on our chats. There we go, sending these. Okay, so massive alerts in the center and north now as well. Impacts in Tel Aviv already. Missile interceptions have been recorded in Abu Dhabi, so now we're seeing hits on the UAE as well. Seems all hands on deck on all major US air bases in the region. UAE has announced partial closure of its airspace so far. All right. I wonder if I can get these up. 1 second, guys. Let's go to this. It's AMK's posting them. All right. All right, so do we have any videos? Nothing yet. He hasn't posted any yet. There have been some videos on Telegram that have been posted. Some good ones. Again, here we go. This one, look at this. This is huge. It is absolutely boiling in Basement HQ right now. I'll tell you that for free. Look at that. Another good shot. That's on open source technical. There we go. Huge. Huge attack. Boom. We should be seeing more videos coming out shortly now of the attacks again, let's go here. Following of the attacks happening in Israel. Man. Yeah, this one's going viral, this one. DD Politics is also posted right now. Interesting. 1 minute ago, we're seeing videos of civilians running away in, as you can see here, Abu Dhabi. But yeah. So far, what we have, about 2 hours ago, Israelis launched a preemptive strike on Israel. Everyone knew that the strikes were happening. I mean, the US is building up there. So just for a quick reference point, the US has 2 aircraft carrier fleets. The USS Ford is in the Mediterranean. The USS Lincoln is in somewhere in the Indian Ocean right now. At least another 12 warships, cruisers, missile launchers, whatnot. More than 200 fighter aircraft. That is massive. We have more than 200 fighter aircraft, several ISR aircraft, electronic warfare aircraft. And this is expensive hardware, very expensive hardware. A lot of people were saying it might be a bluff, it might be this. Like I said in the other podcast, if this was a bluff, which clearly isn't now, but if it was at the time, it would be the most expensive bluff in human history. This is the largest buildup that we have seen since who knows how long. This is since, I believe, 2003. This is the largest military buildup in the Middle East since 2003, the Iraq War. Yeah, so again, 200 fighter, and then that's not even including the Israeli Air Force, which is quite strong, some of the strongest in the region, if not the strongest in the region. Tension was building up for a while. We had these talks that were happening and whatnot. But again, look, from the start, there wasn't much going to happen out of the talks. The US had their red lines. The Iranians had their red lines. As soon as red lines start coming into any sort of meeting, you know that nothing is going to happen out of this meeting. Just take a look at Ukraine, for example. They've had 40 meetings so far. And I'm not to sound like a pessimist, but not much has happened. The Russians don't want to move their red lines, and as soon as like a red line won't be passed, the main meeting will not really suffice to anything significant. Yes, so apparently there is a total internet blackout in Iran. We did post about that a little bit earlier. Again, what's probably happening here is like everyone is trying to get on and post as much footage, whilst also the Iranian government would want to suppress as much footage as possible as well. Expect to see that from both sides, though. Expect to see that from Israel and Iran. It's not just going to be an Iranian thing. The Israelis were doing it as well in the 12-day war. It just makes sense. OPSEC, right? You don't want to reveal strikes. That's all good. They don't want to reveal strike locations, right? At the same time, it's for propaganda purposes too. Let's just be honest about that. What's going on is, pause for a sec, beer time. What's going on is, right, The Israeli media and the Iranian media, they want to sort of portray that everything's going fine. Classic. This goes back as old as time. So expect to see media blackouts on both ends. A lot stronger, I should say, on the Iranians. Much tighter control of the internet. But in terms of just people posting videos in Israel, expect to see post removals and whatnot as well. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Again, if we look back, when was this? When did the IDF comment? The IDF would have commented. So the IDF would have commented. Let's go back. If I can see open source intel, what he said. Okay, so this was posted 15 minutes ago. The IDF is currently conducting a broad strike in a number of military targets. So this is what I was saying first, and this is what I had said in the first podcast. The primary targets right now are firstly going to be air defense systems and radars. All right, that's going to be the number one target. If not, if they've already been taken down, again, we'll see. It's been 15 minutes. We haven't seen anything new yet. However, in saying that, we definitely expect to see more strikes out of Tehran. The majority of the videos that we will be seeing will primarily be out of Tehran at the moment, right? So why? It's a civilian center, right? It's a little bit more liberal, a bit more anti-regime, etc. So we're going to be seeing videos. Are we going to be seeing videos of the Iranian bases in the mountains being hit? Probably not. At least not for a while. Okay, so again, we are seeing those strikes happening right now, but so far there has been a bit of a pause in some of the posts. I'm waiting for the posts to reach X at the moment. Okay, so we have unconfirmed reports of targeting the Al Dhafra US base in Abu Dhabi. Seems to be hit. Bahrain, again, this is same sort of footage everyone's sort of reposting at the moment. Missile interceptions above Abu Dhabi. Okay. Now let's take a quick Telegram check. All right. So how are we looking at the moment? All right. So we going on. More explosions in Dubai, Bahrain, and now we're seeing explosions in Saudi Arabia. Repeated explosions in Saudi Arabia. That is pretty significant. Iranian ballistic missiles have targeted Prince Sultan base in Saudi Arabia. That is huge. That is more important. That is more important than any of the bases being hit in Bahrain, Kuwait, or the UAE. If I come back to this map here, where are we looking right now? Here we go. Hopefully it doesn't lag on me too much, man. All right, classic. So we got Bahrain, Qatar, Dubai, Kuwait, Iran. What is the issue here? Why is this not significant? All right, and why did the US move most of its fleet out? Number one, look how close it is to Iran. For those that are not too good with geography, Iran is this massive piece of land here, and all that really separates the US air bases and fleet headquarters is just this strip, this very important geopolitical strip, the Strait of Hormuz. And yeah, so that means missile interception is going to be a lot harder. These missiles fly hundreds of kilometers a second, extremely fast, right? What you would rather want is you'd rather want all your air assets being deeper. So in Saudi Arabia, like we have here, I don't know the exact location of a Prince Salman air base off the top of my head, but so we're looking at Saudi Arabia a lot deeper, and we're also looking at Jordan and Israel. That gives a multi-layered defense. So for example, if Iran launches missiles from wherever it is, the coastline or deep, whatever, you have interceptions that are possible in Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, then Saudi Arabia, then Jordan. So that is why most US air assets have moved out of these bases close to Iran. So what makes this significant is that, according to early reports at least, the Iranians have managed to hit the airbase in Saudi Arabia. Pretty big, if so. Let me just quickly... Basedment airbase. If you guys are joining us, just a quick little plug. If you're not already subscribed to our newsletter daily, this is where most of our information is coming from. You won't be getting this kind of value anywhere else. It's daily, it's free, right? All right. Yeah, so just confirming that base. So the Prince Sultan Air Base is near the capital, just about 200 kilometers southeast, roughly. A bit less than that, actually. Far less than that. Give or take, maybe 100 kilometers or so. So that's somewhere here, right? So that means that if it did impact, and we will be seeing footage of it hopefully soon, it's gotten past air defense systems on the Saudi coast, Saudi Arabian air defense systems, if they're participating in this, Qatar air defense systems, UAE. Okay, pretty significant stuff. Pretty significant stuff. Let's see if we get any updates at the moment. All right. So nothing yet. Nothing yet new. The latest that's coming out of Israel at the moment is the IDF have announced large-scale reinforcements will be sent to ground forces, air force, naval, special forces, reserve forces across all of Israel. They could have just simplified it and said everyone, but here we are. This is an interesting one. We spoke about the protests a little bit. The problem for Trump and the Israelis, I believe, is that at least at first, the protests, they didn't really manage to gain a significant foothold against the government. Why do I say that? Because the Iranian regime is still here, not obvious, but also because the Iranian military apparatus had clearly backed the regime, all right? As long as the military apparatus is still backing the regime, I doubt we're going to see massive protest success. Had we seen that happen, we likely maybe would not be where we are right now. But, I mean, we all saw the footage that was coming out of Iran. It was horrific. I believe, according to some sources, tens of thousands of dead. So, yeah, quite significant. Will we see protests here? Again, mixed, I reckon. I agree with Marius here. I think we're going to see a mixed response of, again, like you said, national solidarity, right, against these. Because what Iran is trying to, and what Iran has been trying to frame itself, it's been trying to frame itself as the non-aggressor. It's defending itself against Israeli and Western aggression, and that's been its stance for decades now, right? So with Israel striking first, they can definitely play on that propaganda card and say, look, this is a defense retaliation. We didn't do anything first, etc. This also goes back to what some of us had asked us in the DMs. Why did Iran not strike first? Especially when most of the US air assets had actually been in Qatar, Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, and whatnot. Why did we not see anything there? I think it goes back to that reason, right? If the Iranians strike first, it gives a sort of precedence for the Americans to go all out, right? But again, we don't know. We also have to consider how united is the Iranian leadership right now, both military and the religious whatnot, right? How united are they in confirming what kind of choices they're going to make? We don't know. We don't know. That's the problem with Iran at the moment. With it, it's so hard to know in terms of what they're thinking, what's happening on the ground. Very hard to tell. A lot of it is just unconfirmed, and we can almost guesstimate, really. All right. So how are we looking here? We've got an update. Let's see. Let's go back on the Iran monitor. This is Iran monitor. I don't know if you can see the screen properly, but iranmonitor.org. All right. So nothing. Oh, here we go. Let me scroll up. What are we seeing here? All right, so we're seeing, again, not much at the moment, not much. Okay. All right, so the IDF have just released this warning. This was 8 minutes ago, IDF. So this gives us context to where exactly the IDF is striking. Urgent warnings to all individuals located inside or near the military industrial factories and military infrastructure across Iran. Okay, so not, I mean, quite broad, right? Quite broad, but yeah. So the attacks on military infrastructure have begun at least in the last hour or so. What we're seeing, all the news that we're seeing right now is going to be a bit behind as it goes, OPSEC and whatnot. All right. Okay, so open source defender, what we got here? He's saying, I believe he's quoting another source. Clarification on earlier reports that the US sent, clarification on earlier reports that the US remit a part of ongoing strike was specifically to target Iranian principal and senior military and civilian yeah. Again, we already know that. So what we sort of saw in the first strike was a decapitation event. Why would we be seeing that early on? The idea is if you can decapitate the main officials, the top hierarchy, you can paralyze the Iranian response. How effective that is, I was saying this earlier, I don't know. The Iranians copped it pretty hard in the 12-day war and they managed to regroup quite quickly. It is something that I believe that the Iranians have a plan for, right? All right, so far, what are we looking at the moment? We haven't seen much activity from Hezbollah as far as I know. Not much activity from Hezbollah. The Houthis have allegedly fired into the Red Sea. That's for one. All right, we're seeing new footage coming out of Abu Dhabi now. DD Geopolitics has just posted this. Hopefully, let me just, if I can see. Oh, you guys see my screen there, jokes. Okay, let's go here. Oh my gosh, fucking hell. Me and technology do not mix clearly. Alright. Boom. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see that. Oh, I keep opening the wrong page. Unbelievable. Alright, so we'll go here. There we go. Technical difficulties. Boom. Strikes clearly landed, I believe. Unless this is interceptors. I can't really tell from this video. It may be interceptor launches. There doesn't seem to be big. Okay, so DD Politics seems to have gotten this wrong. Comments are saying this is from Bahrain. Again, this goes back to, in things like this is all instant information coming through. We're not going to really be able to tell. We're not going to be able to tell straight away what's real, what's not. Everything you have to take with a grain of salt. When it comes to the Middle East, especially, take everything with a grain of salt. Everyone is trying to share as many videos as possible. It's all about engagement. It's all about getting views right now. So you're going to be seeing a lot of reposts. What you're also going to be seeing, a lot of disinformation, right? A lot of old videos are going to be popping up. A lot of misinformation as well. Things that are not being struck, things that are being struck. Why? Like I said, there are multiple players here, right? And everyone wants to spread their own information. All right, let's. Okay, how are we going? Right, okay, yeah. So we're getting a bit more confirmation at the moment that possibly some of the strikes on UAE are from Bahrain, not the UAE itself. Okay, let's keep it moving. Twitter is a bit slow. I feel like everyone's just trying to get as many videos down as possible. We're not seeing any new videos. Again, DD Politics is saying that this is the UAE. I don't know. The last clip they posted wasn't. So we're just going to be careful with that. We'll wait for more confirmation. AMK did say, though, AMK did say that Saudi Arabia did get hit. Let's see if there's any updates on that. According to Filipino groups on Telegram, allegedly a Filipino died in an Abu Dhabi attack. So, again, unconfirmed. That could be one of the first international casualties of this conflict. All right. Reuters saying one person has been killed in the UAE from ballistic. Oh, okay. So no, this is interesting and quite unfortunate actually. Reuters, one person has been killed in the UAE from ballistic missile interception shrapnels. Wow, talk about unlucky, man. That's rough. All right. Okay, let's see. All right, here. Alrighty. So overall, we're about 2 hours in now. 2 hours in, strong attack, strong retaliation from the from the Iranians. Salvo numbers unconfirmed at the moment. At the first salvo, again, I'm quoting AMK here. The first salvo was 30 to 70 missiles, quite significant. It sort of tells us. I mean, again, it doesn't tell us too much, but it gives us an insight into the capacity of how many missiles Iran can launch. If we go back to the 12-day war again, it's something I will keep referencing. By the end of the war, we're seeing like 12 to like a dozen missile launches max, right? And equally at the same time, the Israelis were having trouble defending those with their own interceptors because they were running low on ammunition. Whereas the Iranians, their problem really was that the launches had been hit by sabotage groups, airstrikes, and whatnot, right? So to be shooting 30 to 70 means that they have recuperated at least somewhat. It could also mean, though, that they have much more capability, but they're sort of holding back at the moment, and they're just trying to assess Israeli and US response times and whatnot. Okay, so open source intel is saying from 27 minutes ago, I will give a disclaimer. Open source intel, he is a Israeli source, so he is a bit biased, but he does post some good information on the Middle East. Tehran sees heavy riot squad deployment as the Iranian regime, hard to read, has the Iranian regime braces for potential mass protests. Again, take this with a grain of salt. Israeli source, but the video does show riot cops around. All right, so we're looking there. How we going? Beautiful. All right. This was one of the early impacts. If you've just joined the stream, this was one of the bigger ones. How's that look on the screen? There we go. Bahrain. Nothing out of Iranian proxies just yet. Nothing out of from Hezbollah and whatnot. We're not seeing too much. This was the speech that Trump gave earlier, around 8 minutes long. I found the hat choice quite interesting. Very dark lit room as well for a major press conference. To me, sort of gave a bit of Palpatine vibes, but that's just me. Yeah, so not much at the moment. Expect to see some videos coming out of Tehran shortly, especially as the IDF is operating there. The Israeli military has caught up about 20,000 reservists, mainly in the Air Force, intelligence, Home Front Command, and Navy. Adding blah blah blah, adding around roughly to the 50,000 on duty. All right. Alrighty. I did want to bring up. Okay, how do I? I did want to bring up the importance of Syria. If you know me, you know I've been tracking Syria for bloody hell more than a decade right now. How do I open up this map? One thing we got to fix is how far away this screen is next time. All right. So if we go back a few years, right? If we go back a few years, this is how interesting geopolitics is. For those of you that don't know, the Iranians for a while had the upper hand in the region, right? They had the Shia Crescent going on. And what the Shia Crescent was, it was a term for basically Iranian influence across the Middle East. That went from southern Lebanon. So this is the crescent, right? If you can just sort of picture it. Let me just go over here. That way you guys can see the screen a bit better. Okay, so you had southern Lebanon here, right? Hezbollah is mainly funded by the Iranian regime. Then you had Syria. So the Assad regime historically has been very close with the Iranians, all right? Then you had the Iraqi militias, the Iraqi Shia militias across Iraq, obviously, Iraq, right? And then we also had, if we go down to the Red Sea, to the Horn of Africa, we have the Houthis, right? And so you had this big spread. And for a good many years, especially around the time that the US had sort of been leaving Iraq and whatnot, it was almost confirmed that the Iranians had held the majority of strong influence in the region, right? Especially with a lot of soft power. In the last couple of years, that started to unravel, and we're sort of where we are right now. Iran is somewhat isolated, right? Somewhat isolated from its allies, especially Hezbollah, right? And this is where I'm coming in with Syria. So Iraq and Syria had acted as a pretty much gigantic smuggling route into Lebanon. It also gave the Iranians access to the Mediterranean Sea, again, for smuggling purposes and whatnot, right? So losing Syria 2 years ago now, or a year and a bit ago now, massive news. What happened here is that Hezbollah lost the majority of its smuggling network to Iran. And that severely impacted Hezbollah's ability to sort of rearm itself, right? And it also massively impacted Iranian air defense capabilities. Why? Again, if we go back to Syria and the Iranian relationship that goes back decades, the Iranians had installed radar systems and I believe air defense systems as well in Syria, especially in the southeastern region and up north, right? To mainly be able to preemptively spot any Israeli jets and missiles flying over, right? This gave the Iranians a big buffer. So you had Iraq, and you had Syria acting as this big buffer for Iran, and it made strikes a lot more complicated. But with I believe from 2023, roughly, the Israeli Air Force had started targeting the Iranian radars, and this was shortly before the first two engagements that the Israelis and the Iranians had, I believe in 2024, right? So the Israelis had knocked out the radar systems, and then with the Assad regime falling, that was essentially it. And what we ended up getting was this open window straight through into Iran, which meant that Israeli F-16s could simply fly over Syria with no questions asked, fly into Iraq, and fly into Western Iran. And if I remember correctly, quote me if I'm wrong, tell me, Azerbaijan has also played a bit of a role as well. Azerbaijan is always playing double sides, very interesting country in the Caucasus. So yeah, quite interesting on that front. And that is primarily, I would say, why we saw Western Israeli air superiority over Western Iran, because they just had this clear runway. It was just this clear spot. You can just fly in, no issues. All right, let's see if we've got anything new coming in. All right, so Aiden, take this with a grain of salt. A reference statement I'll be using quite a lot. Aiden, pro-Russian account, not a bad account to follow if you want a bit of variety in your scope of knowledge. But very pro-Russian account stating there are casualties among the American soldiers in Bahrain. Pretty big if true. Pretty significant if that's true. So we're seeing, oh, that's from 3 hours ago. Wow. Talk about this. John Bolton just... I don't know if this is true though. Can someone confirm this? John Bolton dead? Would be quite the timing, should I say, if that is the case. False? Okay, meme then. Has to be a meme. All right, okay. All right, false news, false news. We got our own Joe Rogan Jamie on hand here at the moment. US officials say Iran strikes extending for days, possibly weeks. We'll see how long this goes. We'll see how long this goes. The US air assets that are currently, and the naval assets that are in the Middle East is extraordinary. I mean, we're talking about, again, for those who weren't here earlier, 2 aircraft carrier fleets, the USS Ford in the Eastern Mediterranean, parked outside of Israel, I believe right now. The USS Lincoln, somewhere in the Indian Ocean. More than 12 destroyers, cruisers, missile launcher type ships. More than 200 fighter aircraft. 200 fighter aircraft. F-22s, 2 squadrons of F-22s. Why is that important? F-22s probably are the frontier US air asset if you're going to be launching some sort of strike such as on Iran. Why? Extremely expensive piece of hardware. For 1 hour of flying, they require around 30 hours of maintenance. 1 hour of flight costs between 30 to 40,000 USD, right? So expensive. You would not be sending the F-22s into the Middle East just as a threat. Again, some people were saying that this can be solved diplomatically a few days ago. I was stating that there's no chance of this. As soon as we saw the F-22s fly in, it was confirmed that a strike was going to happen. When was it going to happen? Who knows? But yeah, so again, now we're here. F-22s stationed in Israel, probably the most obvious spot for them to be stationed, the most heavily defensible site in the world right now. And yeah, let's keep going. Okay, so what do we have here? A lot of updates. A lot of updates in Arabic. Okay, so Fight Talk News is calling it 3 minutes ago. Several Iranian Revolutionary Guard leaders and political officials have been killed. I think you should be saying killed, but there's a word missing. Have been killed in the Israel-American strikes. Iranian sources are telling Reuters. Makes sense. Makes sense. Again, how much is this going to impact Iran in the long term? I don't really think too much, right? The Iranians are clearly able to quickly reestablish leadership hierarchies. They were doing it last year, but in the short term, quite important, right? For every minute that the Iranian response is paralyzed, that opens up a window for more US and Israeli strikes. And the state of these strikes, we're not going to really know for the next 24 to 48 hours. We're not going to know. We're not going to know. Let's quickly see what might give us an indication of how the Iranians are going is if they've been launching new missiles. Okay, let's see quickly. All right, so give me 1 second, guys. For all the new guys that are in, again, small plug. We don't have much plug at the moment, but if you're not subscribed, join our free newsletter. It's daily. It's a value that you won't be getting anywhere. Thousands already subscribed. Get on it. We will most likely be doing a deep dive on this. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right. So where are we looking right now? Okay. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat. Go for gold. Happy to answer as many questions as possible. It could be a long night here, so the more information we can sort of discuss, the better, right? Okay, where are we right now? So let's hop on Telegram. Okay, we're looking here. It seems so far, we haven't seen any more missile launches since the last 20 minutes or so. All right. Calibrated is calling initial impacts in Erbil, Iraq, Kurdistan. Right. Could be interceptions, could be an attack, US air bases, if there are, which I assume there would be in Erbil, Iraqi Kurdistan. Again, it could just be interceptions. We haven't seen too many drones yet. That's interesting. We haven't seen any drone swarms coming out of Iran. Played a significant role. They played a significant role last year. Nothing much yet on that end. All right, so we're seeing, as of 1 minute ago, we're seeing smoke is rising over the Qatari capital of Doha. Sirens in Kuwait again. Flight Radar 24 has crashed. It probably will be online. Let's double check that right now. Flight Radar 24. Yep, it is, where's the camera right there? Boom, it has crashed officially. Damn. It did crash a few days ago as well. Okay, so incoming reports, Israelis have been given the all clear to leave shelters. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. We haven't really seen any big attacks since the last 30-40 minutes so far. Oh yeah, man, 100%. The Flight Radar team's been bloody incredible. Props to them. Props to all the open source guys, really. They've been leading the charge here. They've been leading the charge for days now. Some of these guys have been, I mean, if you guys have seen some of the stuff we shared in the newsletter, like these guys are creating Excel spreadsheets of the hundreds of flights that are just happening nonstop. So yeah. So yeah, okay, AMK is calling it as well. US airbase has been reportedly targeted by Iranian-backed groups in Iraq. Okay, so this is the first we're seeing of the Iranian proxies in Iraq being used. Very interesting. I talked about this before. I don't know how much of a strategic impact that the Iraqi militias can have, especially if things really start going sideways for Iran. All right. They are a major funder of the Iranian groups there, but I mean, how much can they really impact? Again, what they can do and what they have done before is they have used drones to strike US air bases. What this does, look, it's not going to cause significant damage to these bases, whatnot, and to the greater overall mission, but it serves two purposes. Number one, it throws off the response times of the US, right? So if the US and Israelis are simply focused on Iran, and if these Iraqi-backed militias start launching drones out of Iraq, whatnot, it can throw off the response times and the air defense systems. Another important thing that a lot of people haven't been talking about online is the propaganda effect, right? Even if one US soldier dies in like a small attack of an Iraqi drone attack, right? That is significant. And I was saying this in the last 5 minutes of last week's podcast. What I was definitely will do, mate. Give me 1 second. So where was I? Right. So the conflict with Iran is not popular. According to most recent polls, it's not popular in the US, right? And Trump ran on this big campaign of being an isolationist, non-intervention, right? And now we're seeing the largest military buildup since the Iraq War in 2003 for a war that is not really supported, right? Especially if you also consider the Epstein files and everything that's been going on. There have been issues with the tariffs, whatnot. Any casualty event for the US is going to look horrible for Trump right now. And this is what some analysts were saying, is that possibly the best thing that the Iranians can do is to put up a fight and give the US like a bloody nose. If they can do that, the US public at home might be able to influence what's going on, right? But we will see. Okay, so just a quick summary for the guys that have been here, or the new guys that have just joined. Last 3 hours or so, I believe now what we're looking at is a preemptive strike by Israel. At first, it was reported it was only Israel. We then found out it was a joint Israeli-US attack by Air Force, but also primarily missiles, right? Launched over, from the videos that we have at least, they were launched from Iraq, over Iraq and Syria. Okay. We then, shortly afterwards, we saw the first wave hit, the first Iranian missile wave hit Israel. Primarily, AMK quoted, I'm quoting him, he's saying 30 to 70 missiles were used, but the exact number we don't know. Shortly thereafter, we saw a second salvo launched, and this began targeting US air bases and Israel. We saw attacks on Bahrain, heaps of videos coming out of there. I believe we saw an attack in Kuwait as well. And then within about 20 or 30 minutes, we saw a third salvo come in, and that had started targeting the UAE, allegedly, and the Saudis. I now can confirm, just based on some videos I have seen, that the Saudi airbase has been attacked. Whether the missiles did land and impact, I don't know, but there is interception videos coming out at the moment over Saudi. Alrighty. We're also, I'm reading here now, UAE will launch an attack against Iran in retaliation. Interesting. All right, so Israeli fighter jet activity over southern Lebanon. Interesting. We haven't seen much from Hezbollah yet. I'm sure they will come into play. The last 5 or so days, there have been targeted airstrikes on ammunition stores. Massive strike happened just 24 hours ago, I believe. Big video came out. Big ammunition store got hit. 5 days ago, we saw a hit on Hezbollah leadership, local leadership. I don't know how high up though. At least 8 were confirmed killed, and that was released by Hezbollah media. So, and I was saying this before. I was telling some of the guys, is this a preemptive strike to sort of paralyze Hezbollah before the main strike can happen? Possibly. Again, Hezbollah has been being targeted the last bloody years now, so can't really prove too much on that. All right, any updates up here? How are we looking? All right. US Israeli forces have reportedly struck an IRJC facility in northern Iran. Okay, so that gives us a bit more context on where strikes have been happening. This is the footage here, as you guys can see. All right, it says a loading. Yeah, internet's a bit slowed down these ends. Right, boom. So first images are being released. All right, open source intel. Here's the guy that's said this, Israeli source. I believe a bit biased, but again, here's a good source when it comes to the Middle East. The problem is when it comes to this conflict, you're not going to be able to find a lot of unbiased media besides us. Small shout out to us, right? You're not going to be able to see much. Again, everyone has a side. Everyone has a side, especially on X. Don't just think that just because it's an open source account that it's going to be independent. I would say a lot of open source accounts are just government paid operators, and I have a few. I've got a few beliefs about that and who that is, but I won't say who. I don't want to call them out. Yeah. Okay, so DD Politics is saying Erbil Airport's targeted. Okay, War Monitor. Okay, so War Monitor, another, I wouldn't say reliable account, but a pretty big account in X. I think he's got over, what are we looking at follower-wise? 1.2 million followers. Okay, so we're looking at reports from Doha, Qatar, strikes. Seems to be possibly some sort of oil or vehicle, whatnot, on fire. Oil facility, maybe. It looks like vehicles in the background. Black smoke usually indicates that. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Not too sure. Israeli F-15's taken off, as we can see. This morning, very early morning strike. All right, so Israel's Channel 10 reports that an Israeli source assesses there's been a major success in assassinations that have been targeting Iranian leadership. All right, and we see here Commander-in-Chief of the army, that's pretty big, has been eliminated. Again, I'm going to go back. I generally think that the Iranians are just used to this, right? Possibly the worst job that you could probably have in the world would be to be a high official in the Iranian military, without a doubt. Like the Revolutionary Guard, I can't imagine the turnover rate the last 12 months that have been there, from sabotage, espionage, targeted assassinations, missiles, bombings, you name it. Possibly the worst turnover rate in history. Not a company I would apply to work for, I'll tell you that. All right, so what are we looking at here? And this is what we were saying earlier, about 24 minutes ago. Open source just said the UAE says it reserves the right to respond to attacks after Iran's missile strike on the US. In Qatar. Right? The UAE is an interesting one. They've been copying it for a while. It hasn't been going well for them. The way I would describe the UAE at the moment is they're sort of like this modern version of Venice in the Middle East, right? If we go back to like the medieval times, Venice had this wide naval empire, right? And it was just this tiny city. We're sort of seeing that out of the UAE as well. The last decade or so, they've really been applying their soft power to spread to most of Africa. If you go back a few weeks to maybe a couple of weeks ago, we sort of posted a map of the UAE influence over Africa. And man, a majority of Central and Northern Africa has strong ties to the UAE, right? A lot of strong ties. UAE business, a lot of gold. Gold is a massive one for the UAE. They are one of the major gold exporters in the world. So importing gold out of Africa, definitely some dodgy deals there, right? The major conflict zone, and we're going to have to do a podcast on this eventually, right? Just to give the Israeli Iran stuff a little bit of a break at the moment. The next major conflict zone, right, is almost without a doubt going to be in Ethiopia, right? I'm not going to get too deep into it, but for the most part, the UAE has been backing the UAE has been backing governments and proxy groups that are not part of the traditional status quo, right? So in Sudan, for example, and I'll get back to Ethiopia in a moment. In Sudan, for example, the UAE has been notoriously, you could say, they've been backing the RSF, and the RSF is responsible for the massacre in Darfur. Thousands were massacred. We saw the satellite images of that, and that's southwest of Sudan here. If the map, not going to scroll in too much, hopefully not too much. Here we go. Right. And And the RSF, again, is against, you could arguably say, the legitimate government, right, of the Sudanese people. Again, I'm not going to get too deep into it. There was a split and whatnot. There's a very complicated history there. But Sudan is being backed by Egypt, the Saudis, the Turks, right? And we're seeing this sort of proxy war right now between the UAE and Israel, right? The Israelis and UAE are backed, and it's caused a bit of a stir amongst these Gulf and Middle Eastern countries, these Arab countries. How much is the UAE cozying up to Israel and vice versa? All right. You have that there. Then bordering Sudan, you have Ethiopia, which the UAE is also backing. Ethiopia has been upset for a long time that it has no access to the Red Sea, right? And what it wants is this part of Eritrea to be part of Ethiopia. And so we're seeing mobilization efforts on both sides. There are rebel groups in northern Ethiopia. It's a very complicated region. So we probably will see conflict there break out. Pretty significant. And what started out as quite insignificant has now merged into a large regional conflict. You have UAE-backed forces fighting in Ethiopia and Sudan, and you have Turkish, Saudi, Egyptian-backed groups fighting across Somalia, Somaliland, Ethiopia, and Sudan. Like, this is a massive thing. The UAE was also big in Yemen for a while, and they just played their card wrong, and they got kicked out of there by the Saudi-backed forces quite quickly, within 2 weeks. Actually, quite interesting. So the UAE has been on a bad run at the moment. But for those of you who don't know, just to summarize quickly, the UAE and the Israelis, good mates for a while, since the Abraham Accords were signed. All right, enough about that. Let's see what's going on back here. All right. All right, so this is what we were saying just before. Channel 10 Israeli source indicates that General al-Shamkhani, top aide of al-Khamenei, has been killed in the recent strikes. So what we saw early on, it seems to now be confirmed. We did see a decapitation strike happen to paralyze the Iranian military as much as possible. Again, with the decapitation event, in the short term, the goal is to paralyze. If you can paralyze the response, right, it opens up windows, and that means missiles, that means boom. The guys on the ground, especially if you have a very centralized system, right, the guys on the ground that are manning the air defense systems, a lot of the times in these autocratic regimes, right, you have this top-down leadership where they have to get approval from their commander. The commander has to get approval from his senior commander. Senior commander has to get approval from the generals and vice versa. Once you knock out the top, it sort of paralyzes the whole thing, right? And that's the goal of the Israelis and the US here. And without a doubt, we're definitely seeing strikes on military facilities already. We've seen some information on that, air defense systems, whatnot. Again, if you guys have any questions, whatnot, feel free to ask. We are killing it right now. And I believe we'll most likely be calling it soon. There hasn't been too much going on as of yet. We might not be seeing anything for a while, but let's have a quick check-in with Telegram and see how we're going. Sirens in Tel Aviv intercepted missiles. Okay, so we're seeing a fourth salvo now. Fourth salvo of Iranian missiles targeting Jerusalem as well. Crazy stuff. Southern Israel is also being targeted right now. Last 5 minutes, explosions in Abu Dhabi reported near the main airport. Damn. All right. Evacuation from the Burj Khalifa has started. That is, I mean, oh man, imagine that gets hit. Obviously by accident, but who knows at this point. Imagine that gets hit. That's crazy. All right. Very nice. Very nice. All right, interceptions over Abu Dhabi. We saw this earlier. Oh, random. Wrong button. All right. So what can we expect in the next coming weeks? Depends. It all depends on Iran, I would say. It all depends on Iran. We don't know much about them, right? I know for a fact that the Chinese have supplied new radar systems to them. That's high-tech radar systems. And that was making the rounds. That was making the rounds next. The problem with those Chinese radars is that they're good for low-flying objects and close range, right? That's the problem. What Iran needs and what Iran has been lacking for quite a while now is long-range air defense systems and radar systems. It was a primary target during the 12-day war. Iran's best air defense systems is the S-300, which is the Russian S-300. And overall, I mean, like I said earlier, the Israelis said that got knocked out, but we saw proof. Satellite imagery was released a couple of days ago. Someone found the S-300 on an airbase near Tehran. But the most important thing for those who don't know how these air defense systems work, it's not just a missile launcher that just shoots. It's a whole thing. You have usually 1 to 2 support vehicles, which link up to the radar system that's nearby, and then you have the launcher as well. So you need all this to be connected to operate. We saw images of the S-300s, but no radars. Without the radars, those things are blind. Okay, so this could be the reason that we saw such an easy strike so early on in the morning in Iran, because there simply weren't any long-range air defense systems. But again, we'll see. In the coming days, we'll get a clearer picture. We are well documented with what the US have and what the Israelis have, so that's not really a question. There were people saying, and again, I think this information we were getting analysts saying that the US can't sustain more than a few days. I think that's complete garbage. We have seen hundreds of cargo flights from the US, from Europe, coming in for days on end, hundreds, right? The US can definitely sustain a multi-week operation. But the main problem is, in the long term, and this is a legitimate criticism, is just how long will it take the US to recuperate all this spent ammunition that they've just wasted on Iran, when the Chinese are likely looking to take Taiwan in the next couple of years. If you were focusing on the news recently, the news articles that were coming out, within a span of 24 hours, you got like 4 to 5 news articles on the Wall Street Journal coming out, New York Times, all this negative press about the attack. My theory is that someone in the military has been leaking this, mainly to alert the public and just throw off any major long-term support for this conflict if it goes multi-week, because the military is concerned about the bigger problem, right? The bigger problem is the major rival of the US, which is China, and some of these systems, these missiles, just take years to replenish, okay? The big question is that we're going to be asking in about 3 to 4 years, maybe even 2 years. The big question we're going to be asking, was this Iran conflict worth it? That's going to be the big question that's going to be asked. And we will see, especially if the Iranians can last out for at least a month, 2, or even longer, who knows? It could bite the US in the ass in the next couple of years. But yeah, so I believe we might be calling it there for now. If anything else changes, we'll keep you guys updated. Again, small plug. Just quickly, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat right now. I'll freely answer them. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. And again, small plug. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, thousands are reading it every day. It's a daily thing. All right. And you're getting top value that you won't be getting anywhere else. You wake up in the morning, you read the newsletter, you are updated. Talking about updated, the UAE confirms casualties have been noted. Okay, so we're there. We will be ending the stream in about 5 minutes. So any last questions, if you guys have, feel free to ask. And make sure, if you're not, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube. The plan is this year, long form content on YouTube. That's going to be a big goal of ours. Solo podcast, group podcast, whatnot. And we're also planning on doing explanation videos about Ukraine battles and whatnot. Again, you guys, we're trying to listen to as much feedback that you guys have for us. So, yeah, let's see how we're going at the moment. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, guys. Prosperity Partner, thank you. All right. As an overall summary for the first few hours, like I would just say overall, I am impressed with the Iranian response given all things considered. Largest build-up since 2003. We're not just talking about aircraft here. We're talking about air defense systems, THAADs, the famous Patriots, right? You have the Iron Dome. Boom, boom. Massive air defense layered tiered systems stretching from, if we go back to the map, just to summarize everything, right? We have air defense systems in Iraq. We have air defense systems stretching all along the coastline here, from the UAE all the way to Kuwait. You have in Saudi Arabia, massive installation of air defense systems. Then you have Jordan, Israel, okay? If we're seeing strikes already, that is good news for the Iranians. A lot better than their previous attempts. And what we have to consider is 12 days into the last war, Israel and the US were going short on ammunition for interceptors. Have they prepared for that? Have they been able to replenish systems? That's going to be a big question in the next week or so, right? Because if they're intercepting, and if the Iranians seemed to have spread their salvos across multiple countries, they could be trying to find weak spots where the easiest places to strike are. Boom, boom, right? So interception rates, that they could lower in the next few days. Again, we don't know, considering that the US has been sending supplies consistently for the last several weeks now. But that was a major problem for the Israelis. I mean, the Iranians were sending, by the end of the 12-day war, they were sending like half a dozen missiles, and some were still impacting Israel. Okay, so interceptor replenishment is going to be a massive thing, and we'll see. Right now, it seems that the US is a lot more involved than last time, and that the strikes are not primarily targeting Israel, which means that the US is first spreading itself thin in terms of air defenses, but this can also be a bad thing for the Iranians. The Iranians are also spreading themselves thin in terms of strike locations, striking multiple areas. This could be a positive for them or a negative. Again, we'll find out in the next couple of days. I think we will call it there. We've been going on for quite a while. I don't even know how long we've been going on for. If anything does majorly happen, we'll be back or whatever. Stay updated on our posts. Make sure to subscribe, join the newsletter, and share this around to all your friends, right? Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.